But right now, lovelies, it's time for your news by the numbers. There's no talking points. There's no talking heads. There's no smoking guns. Tonight, it's you, me, and the raw numbers. And tonight, we're talking about educators. And tonight's number is 7. The 7 ways teachers can respond to the evil of Charlottesville, starting now, with school just around the corner.
Yep.
The first thing they can do is to recognize that humanity and radical anti-racism is our curriculum for every subject.
That sounds about right. I mean, I like generally public school textbooks are, especially in the South, are not that great at like being morally unambiguous about what happened in the past and the effects of it today. You hear the argument a lot that, you know, we're living in a post-racial society and racism doesn't exist, and that everyone who's saying, you know, Black Lives Matter is actually the racist because they're acknowledging that races are a thing. And I think it is teachers' responsibility to teach these lessons as uncomfortable. I mean, this shouldn't be a political issue, right? Like, I think this is a human issue, and it's like common sense, right?
And I heard that, and as I was watching some of the coverage around the Charlottesville thing, I heard people in the conservative folks that were like, oh, the reason why we're having the alt-right is because of identity politics on the left, and I'm just like,
yo, no.
And I'm like, huh? And I'm like, people, the KKK, and I had to go back and look at all of this stuff. Like, I really had to take a trip back down memory lane, right? And brush up on history. Because I think sometimes you've got to brush up on history. And so let's lay this all out here. So 1860 was the first year that a major political party had an had abolishing slavery as part of their party platform. That was the Republican Party, right? They won the election. It was a 4-way election. They won. That was Abraham Lincoln. At the point that he became the president, a number of states they left the country. Like, we are out. This is so bad. We love slaves so much. We love the ideal of owning black people so much that we are going to leave the United States of America. Yeah. So they were the definition of un-American. They're like, we're out.
We've exited America.
Yeah, like hasta luego, arrivederci, we're out. Then more states were like, you know what? We agree with that state. We're leaving. So Abraham Lincoln was like, well, we're going to keep the United States of America. And if you guys want to leave, okay. Then we're just going to fight you to stay. And so then we had a war, and there was a couple of these ragtag bunch of racists. They attacked Fort Sumter, and we went to the Civil War. The North won, and the 13th Amendment was passed. That was the end of slavery. So this is all. So people would argue this goes back to, now this takes us to present day, Charlottesville, which is where we are right now.
Yep.
Right. So then they've erected, especially in the South, below the Mason-Dixon line, which is Maryland is considered part of the Mason-Dixon line. There are all of these statues dedicated to these generals. Now, I don't give a hoot whether or not the generals liked black people or didn't like black people. They picked a side, right? They picked a side. They said, we are going to fight for the people who want to own black people, period. I don't care if they're like, well, I don't have any slaves, but I'm going to fight for the people who have slaves. And like my mama say, birds of a feather flock together.
I mean, I think one of the things that is interesting about the Confederate statue thing that I think is bizarre is like, okay, so people are outraged about the statues. They want to take them down. I get that. You know, I'm on board with it. I see why you do it. They're a symbol of hate. Let's just remember who is on our money right now. A bunch of white slave owners, right?
Right, but
like,
even
it's a deep problem.
See, I won't even go that far. And I said this. I was on Fox, and I said this earlier because Donald Trump made this argument in his press conference of how far do we go? And I will give you where we go to, because I believe that if you look at our history gives you clear sort of indicators. So I think 1860 to me seems to be. I won't follow others. 1860 is where our country made a choice that we were going to say that black people are humans and should be treated as such. 1860. Boom. So if you were our founding father, George Washington had slaves, even though he freed his slaves after he died. Thomas Jefferson had slaves. James Madison had slaves. Whatever. 1860, cutoff point.
That's the line for Richard Fowler.
That's the line for me, because at 1860, we as a nation voted and made a choice by electing Abraham Lincoln that slavery was no more the law of the land. And we fought over it. And at 1865, when the Civil War was over, we passed a constitutional amendment that said black people, and then we passed the 13th and the 14th Amendment. So black people are now citizens and they can vote. At this point in time, that's it. We are equal, period. So we should be treated equal, boom. Now we can go into Dred Scott and we can talk about that later. Just stay with me and I'm gonna bless you. So you have that piece. So I believe all of these, but the idea that we're honoring these men who fought to uphold an institution that saw me as not a human, and we go to schools with the names of these generals on there, and we go to church, we see you driving on the streets in Alexandria, which is a city over from here, and you see the big statue dedicated to this man that believed that I wasn't a human. And you know, in Charlottesville there's a park, and you have picnics at this park where I'm not a human. That's, you know, all these places where I'm not human, and you celebrate this man, and you have reenactments at these places where this, and so what people are saying, then you have these, so then you connect this all together. So you have people like David Duke and Richard Spencer who believe that Jews are subhuman. They believe I'm subhuman. They believe anybody that's not of the Aryan race are subhuman, and they're protesting the taking down of this memorial. Well, there's no reason as to why you should memorialize these men. These generals don't deserve my honor. They don't deserve my respect. They don't deserve me memorializing them. They don't deserve a monument. They don't deserve any of that. Because they believed in an institution where people who are Americans are less than. So they should be taken down not yesterday, not today. They should be taken down not next month, not next year, not 5 years, not 10 years. They should be taken down today, immediately. And if we put these statues up there and we continue to honor them, we are honoring an institution where 17 to 18% of this country is seen as less than human. And that is problematic, right? And that continues to uphold this ideal of white supremacy, which is how we got to Charlottesville.
Yep.
So that's to answer the president's question. That's how far we go. 1860, boom, put a period on it.
The Richard Fowler
put it in a nugget.
There you go.